Good day everyone. I want to start this video with a question of what are invasive species? Invasive species are the species that are non-native to the ecosystems whose introduction does or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm, and worse, it can also harm humans. Why should we keep an eye on invasive species? The answer is, it can threaten our human health, devastate our ecosystems, and can jeopardize our local economies. This info video will talk about our learnings in GED110 that will serve as an awareness to us that deals with our environment or the place that we live. The topics that we will tackle are Biogeochemical cycle, mainly in sedimentary and phosphorus cycle, Anthropogenic effects, Eutrophication, invasive species, Epigenetics, and other ecological reservoirs. And now, let us proceed to the biogeochemical cycle.
The ways in which an element or different molecules moves between living and non-living forms and locations is called a biogeochemical cycle. We will discuss the sedimentary and phosphorus cycle. Sedimentary cycle includes elements like iron, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur that circulates the environment. The elements move from land to water and then back to sediment. This cycle comprises the weathering of an existing rock, followed by the erosion of minerals from it, their transport and deposition, and their burial. Phosphorus cycle describes the transformation and translocation of phosphorus. Phosphate compounds are found in sedimentary rocks, and as the rocks weather, the phosphorus they contain slowly leaches into soil and water. The inorganic phosphate from the soil is taken up by plants that may be consumed by animals. When the plant or animal dies, it decays and the organic phosphate is returned to the soil. Phosphorus-containing compounds in soil end up in waterways and eventually sink to the floor of the ocean, where they form new sedimentary layers.
Let us clarify one important piece of information of our discussion. Both the sedimentary and phosphorus cycles are not exclusive to the ecological reservoir of land. In the sedimentary cycle, we know that through this process, sedimentary layers form in the land, but we must also see how the others play a role in it. Weathering occurs with the aid of wind, rain, and plant growth. Wind erodes rocks, rain freezes and melts inside the cracks of rocks, and plants grow on the cracks, thus displacing chunks of rocks. In the phosphorus cycle, the same principle applies. Reservoirs other than land play a role in running the cycle. Weathering also occurs with the aid of wind and rain. As phosphorus erodes, it is transported to water sources that will then be eaten by both plants and animals, and we know that after both of these die and decompose, phosphorus returns to the land, thus continuing the cycle. Keeping in mind all of these information, we humans are part of the animals that has a role in affecting these cycles, but we can consider our species to be a separate and special case. That is what we are going to discuss next.
Have you ever wondered what are the real causes of pollution, habitat loss, eutrophication, soil erosion, and even undrinkable water? Well, if we were to define it in layman's term, it would be because of human activities, which is also known as anthropogenic effects. Anthropogenic effects are changes to biophysical environments and to ecosystems, biodiversity, and raw materials which are caused directly or indirectly by humans. This compromises humans amending habitats, constructing structures, and building roads. In our world, agriculture is considered to be the main source of food, which creates both jobs and economic growth. However, with the increase of anthropogenic activities, it has resulted in the degradation of nearly 1 billion hectares of land globally. This is causing a reduction in a number of ecological functions around the world, putting livelihoods in jeopardy and fostering social instability. As individuals, we can lessen the anthropogenic effects by choosing energy-efficient appliances, promoting the use of organic fertilizer, doing informative videos regarding the bad effects of mining, and many more.
Eutrophication is a natural process that occurs when there is an excessive amount of nutrients or minerals within a body of water. Through this process, algal blooms occur which are harmful to living organisms. Eutrophication causes many harms. With the acceleration of the increase in the population of algae, fishes, and other living organisms will be at risk of suffocation. During algal blooms, algae need a lot of oxygen, sometimes even depleting oxygen that cause anoxic condition to fishes. Sometimes, this excessive number of algae can produce toxins that are harmful to the environment. However, it is not always like this. algae in a moderate population can actually be beneficial due to photosynthesis. In fact, according to past research, the oxygen produced in algae amount to 50 to 85% of the total produced oxygen.
Invasive species are organisms that are not native to a certain area. They can have a negative impact on the economy and environment of a new location. Invasive species have the capacity to decimate native plants and animals, destroy biodiversity, and modify ecosystems forever. Not all non-native species are invasive. To be considered invasive, a species must be able to quickly adapt to its new environment, reproduce rapidly, and cause damage to property, the economy, or the region's native plants and animals. Ship ballast water, firewood, unintentional discharges, and humans can all introduce invasive species into a region. Some species are introduced to a new location on purpose. Some of these species are brought in as pets or for ornamental purposes, while others are introduced as pest control.
Epigenetics. Epigenetics is a study of how the environment or the surroundings affect genes without changing the DNA sequence of an organism. There are different ways where epigenetic regulation or how genes changes without affecting the DNA sequence, and they are primarily observed in plants, since plants master changing their traits or evolving just to survive in the environment they are in because, unlike other organisms, they cannot run or escape from their environment. Furthermore, studying epigenetics in land, specifically in the plants, can help us determine the impact of the biogeochemical cycles, such as the phosphorus cycle, on the environment and vice versa. Plants need phosphorus for their growth, but phosphorus in soils is not sufficient or readily available for plants, which is why fertilizers containing phosphorus were made. The lack of phosphorus has made some plants respond to epigenetic regulation to moderate the nutrients available in their environment. Even now, experts are studying epigenetics in land to determine other impacts of changes in the environment.
Adaptation, eutrophication, water pollution, soil erosion, and habitat loss. Human activities have been causing abruption to the sedimentary cycle and phosphorus cycle and has even caused biodiversity loss. All of this for the sake of progression, but in the end, is it worth it to cause such damage because of our selfish acts? We are not rocks that are static in one place. We can act and lessen its effects by avoiding phosphate-containing products, have our leaders implement various policies regarding the use of phosphate, adopt the methods of organic farming, and invest in geoengineering to minimize nutrient pollution. Act now and be part of the movement to prevent and reduce these effects.